This, I think, is the greatest defeat for American prestige since the darkest days of the Vietnam War. We cannot afford not to take some sort of military action and strong military action. But we should also be aware of the immensity of the task. Osama bin Laden has presence in at least 35 countries. All of these need to be wrapped up, and it will take a lot of resources and a lot of time.
Let me go back to Mike for a moment here. Mike, when you say that these some of these other people are being detained and one, as we know, has been arrested as a material witness, what does that mean exactly, a material witness?
Well, it can mean one of two things. Number one, that the person has vital information relating to the investigation of the case, or number two, has vital information and is a flight risk. So that is what a material witness is. And sometimes what happens is a material witness graduates, let's say, to a serious charge in terms of being a conspirator in some operation that's being investigated by the FBI or federal officials.
To the audience quickly, and is it Janice? Can't see her. Janan, can't see her.
I support the president's act of retaliation. America is definitely at war. My way of life, our way of life, has been jeopardized. I think that a lot has been taken from our self-esteem, our way of living, and everyone keeps saying innocent lives are going to be lost. Well, our way of living has been taken away, and lives have already been jeopardized. There is not anything more terrible that we have experienced, and I'm really saddened by everything that has occurred. But something has to be done. Unfortunately, there's no love in war.
A couple of emails here. Stephen in Hong Kong says, for the sake of justice, I think the civilized world as a whole has the right to punish the terrorists, but we need to be careful enough not to hurt innocent civilians. Otherwise, it wouldn't be different from what the terrorists just did. Dan in Minnesota says, let's give them a shortcut to their heaven. A 10-megaton device should suffice. Stanley, we had some concerns a moment ago from Omar in the audience about Osama bin Laden and the fact that the finger of blame has been pointed towards him by the president and others. We had the same concerns from some folks in the crowd yesterday. There is some belief out there that there is not enough hard evidence pointing toward Osama bin Laden. Can you help us with that?
Yeah, I'm afraid I would disagree most strongly with the fact that he is not really a suspect. He is not only a prime suspect, he is the only suspect. In an operation of this nature, which is enormous in its magnitude and its planning, in its resources, you look for an organization that has both the motivations and these resources in order to carry out the attack. The only group on this planet that I can think of responsible, able to carry out this attack is Al-Qaeda, the network run by Osama bin Laden.
You know, he had to have thought about what his plan was going, if he is indeed behind this. He had to think about his plan after this attack was carried out. Big advantage for him?
Oh, without a shadow of doubt. I mean, you know, there are many, as Mike Shenoy said earlier in your program, or the previous program, I mean, Osama bin Laden is extraordinary, popular in many areas of the Muslim world, rightly or wrongly, of course. But it is a fact that he is very popular. So this, for him, I'm certain he will believe it as a magnet to get more recruits, and probably he would be quite accurate in that assumption.
Another question for Mike. How big a web do they think the terrorists have woven in this country, Mike? I mean, I guess the simple way of saying it, a lot of people are concerned, you know, is there a terrorist living next door to me?
Well, I don't think that you should take it to that level of paranoia, but let me say this. I'm being told by intelligence sources that there has been a concerted effort, they believe, by Al-Qaeda and other terrorist groups associated with it to infiltrate so-called sleeper cells agents into this country over the years with certain expertise. We do know that Osama bin Laden had been recruiting people with various expertise around the world, and for instance, in this case, he used a lot of pilots. Intelligence sources are telling David Inzor, quote, that the threat is still out there, and I had another one tell me it's not over. So there are people still in this country, but it's impossible to get a number on it, and anyone who says they have a number on it, I think is making it up.
Up to the audience here, and Chris.
Yes, my name is Chris Richardson. I'm president of Emory College Council. We represent 19 colleges and over 100 organizations from across America, and we want to see who did this punish, but we don't want to see that at the expense of civil liberties of Arab Americans, South Asian Americans, or any Americans, really. Diversity is our greatest strength, and I don't think that these men here with me should be punished or racial profiling done against them. I think that we're living in a new kind of world here. This is the new Cold War, the new world order for America. Once we kill Osama bin Laden, 10 will take his place and 10 will take their places. This is the new America. Just as people live in London, just as people live in Israel, we may live like that in America now, where car bombs and suicide bombers jump on buses. This is something that my generation will have to go through probably for the rest of my life. I won't see peace anymore. This is the new America we're living in, and I think it's time that we, as Americans, realize this. This isn't as easy as going in. This isn't Gulf War. This isn't Kosovo. This is the new America, and this war against terrorism is not going to be an easy journey for us.
Alan, Victoria, that regenerates the debate over freedom versus security once again. How far do you think Americans are willing to go?
Well, you don't have freedom.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Go ahead, Al.
Well, you don't have freedom without security. And so security will have to come first. It doesn't mean that we're going to give up civil liberties, but it also means that, with all due respect to the young man in the audience there, that, you know, when people from Denmark start blowing up buildings, then Danes will be profiled, which they probably will never do. But the point is, when you have people from various countries that are identifiable, who are almost always behind these kinds of things, not only here now, but have been doing it for many, many years, for the whole 50 years that Israel's been a country, then you have to look at those folks. You just have to, because without security, everybody loses their freedom, and we can't not address that particular issue, and I think we're going to have to, and we will do it.
Right now, I think Americans are very willing to give up some civil liberties. I think as time goes on, and unless there is another major attack on us, people will become less willing. But that's something we're going to have to deal with. I think another issue we're going to have to deal with, and it's very important, is that those voices that are speaking out in dissent, such as Representative Barbara Lee or other people who are questioning our actions, we have to recognize that one of the things that we stand for is the right to dissent. And the terrorists would like to stop that. They would like us not to have the freedom of speech that we have. They would like you and I, Bobby, not to be able to hold these jobs and to be stuck behind blacked out windows in our homes. We cannot allow that.
Well, let me ask folks in the audience how they feel about certain civil liberties. For example, a national ID card or armed marshals on planes, things like that. How do you feel about that? Dale, let me go to you first.
I do a lot of international travel, and yes, I would. I would sacrifice some of my freedom to make sure my safety is total safe, because, you know, even when you're coming back from traveling from overseas, they have several checkpoints before you get onto the plane, and I know a lot of my friends see the checkpoints here, maybe one or two, you're on the plane. So yeah, I would be willing to definitely give up a lot of freedom for safety.
And who's not okay with it? Who's not okay with giving up some freedoms? No, everybody, you're not?
I'm fine with giving up some freedoms, but in terms of racial profiling and such, I think that would be a horrible mistake. The correspondent just talked about when Danes start blowing up things, it'll be all right to start racially profiling them. However, if we look back at American history, I mean, look back at the JFK assassination, the assassination of Martin Luther King, the Oklahoma City bombing. I mean, if we start racial profiling one group of people, I mean, in this case, Middle Easterners, we're going to have to start racially profiling everyone, and I think that's a shame.
And over here on the other side of the room.
Go ahead.
Yes, I think that if you give up your freedoms, that's exactly the mission that they are trying to accomplish with these attacks. I think that we need to carry on life as we know it. We need to take this in our stride. We need to reach out and retaliate. But in giving up our liberties, that is the desire of them. That is why they are doing this to us in the first place.
Alan, Victoria, I've got an email from Danny who says, what do you think about a mandatory national ID card? I've heard some people say it would be un-American. However, I feel this would be a great way to help battle terrorism. I also think it would be patriotic.
Well, I've always hated the idea, but we have one. We have our driver's license. It can be adapted in some way to make it a national ID card. We actually have more of a national ID card than some other countries do now. So I think that's something that's bound to happen, and we're going to have to be okay with it. In the same way that we're going to have to grow up. We have to recognize that the security that we go through when we fly internationally is going to happen nationally, and we are maybe going to have 3-hour check-ins, and we're going to have to deal with it, and we're going to have to grow up.
Yeah, and none of those things will be, unfortunately, will be a cure-all because, here I am in Southern California, the land of false documents. We have people running around here who shouldn't be in the country, who have been here and are working with false documents, who are getting benefits with false documents. And so if you have a national ID card, you'll have people that will falsify them, and very sophisticated methods exist to do that. So the real issue for Americans really has to be, how do we address all of these things, including Mike Boettcher's report just now about more people in the country who are living in New Jersey and in Florida who should not have been here. The American people need to ask, and it's not outrageous to ask, how are these people getting in here? What are they doing when they're here? And we have to be able to control that. That's job one when it comes to dealing with the immigration issue.
And if they're on a terrorist watch list or under surveillance, there's a reason for that.
Correct.
So, it seems like we may have to pay more attention to changing our methods of human intelligence.
Bobby, can I
Yes,
make a
go ahead,
point,
Stan.
if I may? What is badly needed in this country, and it has been suggested before, is some sort of national coordinating body for counterterrorism and anti-terrorism. At the moment, each government department, each government agency goes its own way. What we badly need is a national committee headed by a man who reports directly to responsibly to the president, such as Senator John McCain, who is able to coordinate the counter-terrorist activities of every department and agency of government. We don't have that at the moment.
Al Rantel, Victoria Jones, Mike Boettcher, and Stanley Bedlington, thank you all very much for joining us. We are going to take a quick break here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And right after a news update, we will talk about the Taliban, we will talk about Islam, and what religion has to do with the attack on America. Here's Darren Kagan now at the news desk.
Bobby, thank you very much. It's been very interesting to hear the opinions. A lot of people across America and a lot of the world have things that they need to express and share with others. We'll get back to you in a moment. First, the latest developments, and in fact, the latest development you saw live here on CNN, and that is President Bush and Mrs. Bush returning from Camp David to the White House. It happened just a short time ago, and the president stopped to make some comments for the country. Let's bring in our CNN senior White House correspondent, John King, who is at the White House. John, hello.
Hello to you, Dan. Well, the president made an opening statement. Then he took several questions from reporters standing at ease, but very remarkable the things he said. The president talking tough, naming Osama bin Laden as the prime suspect, promising yet again to root him out of his caves, the president said at one point. But at the same time, the president also urging Americans, as nervous as they might be, to get back to work tomorrow. The president also used the term, quote, "They have roused a mighty giant." This as the president prepares military, financial, and diplomatic responses. I want to have everyone listen in now to what the president said, his opening statement after he stepped off Marine One on the South Lawn of the White House.
Today, millions of Americans mourned and prayed, and tomorrow we go back to work. Today, people from all walks of life gave thanks for the heroes. They mourned the dead. They asked for God's good graces on the families who mourn. And tomorrow, the good people of America go back to their shops, their fields, American factories, and go back to work. Our nation was horrified, but it's not going to be terrorized. We're a great nation. We're a nation of resolve. We're a nation that can't be cowed by evildoers. I got great faith in the American people. If the American people had seen what I had seen in New York City, you'd have great faith too. You'd have faith in the hard work of the rescuers. You'd have great faith because of the desire for people to do what's right for America. You'd have great faith because of the compassion and love that our fellow Americans are showing each other in times of need. I also have faith in our military. And we have got a job to do. Just like the farmers and ranchers and business owners and factory workers have a job to do, my administration has a job to do. And we're going to do it. We will rid the world of the evildoers. We will call together freedom-loving people to fight terrorism. And so on this day, on the Lord's Day, I say to my fellow Americans, thank you for your prayers. Thank you for your compassion. Thank you for your love for one another.